CBS News has learned that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is considering an Army base to house unaccompanied migrant children. Personnel from the agency met with the Defense Department Wednesday. They toured vacant space at Fort Benning in Georgia. It would become the second out of more than 160 shelters to be on federal land. Now, that number 160 is important. Out of those 160, only one operational shelter is not overseen by state authorities. That facility, that shelter, is in Homestead, Florida. Now, 3 Florida Congresswomen are calling for that shelter to be closed. Donna Shalala, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and Debbie Mucarsel-Powell issued a joint statement Tuesday. All have visited this facility and are citing, quote, concerns about the harsh conditions, inadequate resources, and lengthy stays the children experience at the shelter. Democratic Congresswoman Donna Shalala now joins us from Capitol Hill. Congresswoman, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm glad you can hear us well. We've worked out all the technical gremlins. You cite in a recent legal filing that including testimonials from 76 children housed in that Homestead facility. They describe some things that you find very concerning. Can you help us understand what you found in those underlying documents?
First of all, it's a prison-like facility, and federal prisoners who have committed crimes are treated better than the children in the Homestead facility. Let me give you a couple of examples. Those kids get 15 minutes for a meal. If they were in a federal prison, if they were a criminal, they'd get 30 minutes. They get 80 minutes a month to talk to family members. If they were in a federal prison, they get 300 minutes. They're regimented. We should not be running these huge facilities. They sleep 150 to a room. These kids are being traumatized. They need to be moved to smaller facilities, preferably run by not-for-profit organizations like Catholic Charities or the Lutheran Family Services, people who are familiar with taking care of children, and in particular, taking care of newly arrived people. I'm just very concerned from what I saw and what's been reported to the courts. And no American wants a child to be treated the way they're being treated in these facilities. It's not that there aren't good people working with them, but this is a for-profit organization. They get $750 a day per child. They have every reason to keep these children. HHS needs to move them to family members as quickly as possible. Most of them have some relative here in the United States. They shouldn't be in those facilities. I think the average is 60 days. That's unacceptable to all of us.
Is it your impression, Congresswoman, that this administration is dragging its feet on that very process you just identified, finding suitable sponsors or family members to relocate these undocumented migrant children?
Look, I've run ORR, that facility, those kinds of facilities over the years. And here's what's important. They need to streamline the process to get these children to proper homes or to sponsors. We should not be keeping children in warehouses. And in particular, there's no justification for treating them with less standards than we treat federal prisons who have committed crimes.
And you mentioned ORR. That's an important acronym in Washington. What is it? And you said you ran it. Remind our audience how you did that, because you were once the secretary of this very agency.
ORR is the Office of Refugee Resettlement. It is an agency within the Department of Health and Human Services. At the moment, it is just overwhelmed, but they need to streamline the decision-making. These children should not be kept for longer than 20 days, according to the courts. But in my judgment, they ought to get them out of these facilities, these large facilities, and get them to smaller facilities where they can be well taken care of.
Now, you and your colleagues in the House voted Tuesday to pass the Dream and Promise Act, which would, among other things, create a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants and those with temporary citizenship status. However, as you well know, this is not a bulletin. it is unlikely to be considered in the Senate, and even if it were considered, it would have a very difficult future. The White House has already threatened to veto it. Despite all of those obstacles, what message is at the core of this legislation?
Well, here's the message. These young people were brought to this country when they were very young. Through no fault of their own, they were born in another country. Their families are often have other children who are American citizens. Often their parents have become American citizens. They know no other country except this one. They've been good citizens. They've gone to school, they've worked, and we're providing a long pathway to citizenship. They have to live in this country for 10 years and not break any of our laws. And then they'll have an opportunity for permanent residency. After 5 years, they can apply for citizenship. It's a long road, but it's treating these people with dignity and respect, the kind of respect that we hope that our grandparents received when they first arrived in this country.
And Congresswoman, to be clear, this is separate from the migrant issue and those in the shelter that you're talking about, completely separate
Absolutely.
Populations and issues. Now,
There's
I want to go back
two
to
different
something.
Populations.
Right. And I want to go back to something you said, that they would be better housed with Catholic Family Services, Lutheran services. I know that's true. I've seen those facilities, but I think I am accurate in representing that they have said publicly they're also overwhelmed, that there really aren't facilities that they possess to take these numbers of migrants. How do we resolve this issue when there are charities that have shown a capability, but they themselves, if I understand it correctly, believe they are also overwhelmed?
Everybody is overwhelmed, and they will continue to be overwhelmed until we have a re-engineering of the process of making a decision. We've provided too many obstacles to move these children quickly to their family members. Most of them have some family member or family friend that they can move in with. And in addition to that, we have to employ the foster care systems in our states to get them proper sponsors. But we should not be warehousing children. We should not be opening a new army base for these children. And frankly, expanding existing not-for-profits is something that can be done. The problem is they would be regulated by the states. What this administration is doing is putting these children in federal facilities on federal land so they don't have to meet the standards of the states that they're located in. We simply have laws in this country about treating children, and the idea that we would treat these children in a lesser standard than what we're treating federal prisoners in is simply unacceptable to everyone in this country.
Congresswoman Donna Shalala, thank you so much for your time tonight. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome.